Still, if I could describe this guy the best I could, I would probably say Dumbo mixed with a Triceratops. What up, everyone? It's your boy Floz MG. Welcome back to another episode of Tier Up. This time we are going to be ranking the Godzilla monsters and or Kaiju. Whichever one you prefer to call it. I feel like I don't need to explain Tier Up, so let's just get right into it, shall we? Before this video starts, I just want to say that only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you like this video and want to see more like it, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything, and you can always change your mind in the future. Now back to the video. The tiers for this video are as follows. Godzilla tier. See what I did? That's a pun. We also have True Kaiju. Pretty scary. Just kinda weird. And cancelled. And there's been over 30 Godzilla movies, so there are plenty of monsters to go into. But I am not going to be including monsters that have appeared in either Godzilla King of the Monsters or Godzilla vs. Kong, because I have not seen either of those movies and I've not seen them all the way through. So those monsters are not going to be included. We're going to be including all the monsters, or as many as I can remember, from Godzilla 2014 and earlier. Starting off, we have a giant creature named Anguirus. Anguirus' first appearance, I believe, came in the second Godzilla movie, right after the first one. Godzilla... I don't really remember the plot at all. I don't remember the plot of most Godzilla movies, but either way, to describe Anguirus, I would say he's like a very spiky shelled turtle with devil horns coming out the side of his head. Kind of like a Carnotaur turtle. That's literally the best way that I can put it. Anguirus is a pretty cool creature, pretty cool kaiju. As being one of the originals, I'm not going to put him at Godzilla tier because no one's going to say, hey, you see that Godzilla movie? Or, like, who's your favorite Godzilla monster or kaiju? And they're going to be like, oh, Anguirus. But, nah. Since he was one of the originals, I am going to put him up here in True Kaiju. I believe that's fair enough. Next up, we're moving on to a creature called Baragon. I believe his first appearance was in Destroy All Monsters, if I'm correct. I could be wrong, but he was in it for a very short bit, and he got an even bigger part in, I believe it was called Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack. Is that enough words for a title? But he finally becomes like a main part in the Godzilla movie, and they don't even put him in the title! That's mad disrespectful. Still, if I could describe this guy the best I could, I would probably say Dumbo mixed with a Triceratops. I don't really remember if he has like any sort of powers or nothing. He didn't really make that big of an impression on me, so I think we're gonna put him in just kinda weird. I think that's good enough. Moving on to a creature called Batra. I believe this guy was introduced in the Godzilla vs. Mothra remake. Basically in that movie, Mothra always has like these sort of twin fairies who represent like the balance of the cosmos and the universe or some other crap I can't remember. And what happens is like the fairies got captured and Batra is born from that unbalance, and he is basically like a guardian of the earth or something, but takes it too far and starts destroying things. He's basically sort of the antithesis of Mothra. Basically just like a dark Mothra. I will say, on account of how terrifying this guy looks, and if I were to ever see that in real life, I am going to put it up here in pretty scary. Because you know what, if I saw him in real life, he'd be pretty scary. But alright, moving on to the next creature. We have a creature called Biollante. This creature was first introduced in, I believe the movie was called Godzilla vs. Biollante. With a lot of these movie titles, I could be getting it wrong. But basically what Biollante is scientists found Godzilla cells and mixed it with that of plant cells, and then it created Biollante, which I basically just believe it to be a gigantic Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors with a crocodile mouth. And that is a really weird plot, and the plot of that movie came from a contest. Like, no joke. There was a contest to see who could write the most amazing Godzilla plot or interesting Godzilla plot, and this won. But Biollante as a whole, I will say it is more so creative. I'm not gonna say it's like a true kaiju, because like, not everyone knows who Biollante is. So, you know what? Because of how he looks, I think we'll just put him in pretty scary. We'll put him there. Moving on. Oh, this creeping mofo. This is a creature named Destroyer! And his name is literally spelled Destroyer! Because Toho, the creator of the Godzilla movies, they couldn't trademark the name or copyright the name Destroyer, but they could copyright and or trademark the name Destroyer! I will say that Destroyer is a really scary mofo. And, you guessed it, this guy was introduced in the movie Godzilla vs. Destroyer! I'm not saying that people would automatically remember him or know who he is, but look at him! That's pretty scary! So you know where we're gonna put him? It's pretty scary! Oh, this freaking thing. Next up we have a creature named Gabra. I feel like whoever was coming up for the name for this guy was just drunk and trying to pronounce the name Gabriella. It's Gabra. 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 This guy, I don't even know, what's he supposed to be based off of? The point is, this guy was introduced in the movie, I believe, Godzilla's Revenge, which was a sequel to the movie Son of Godzilla. How drunk were they? How drunk were they when they made this? Like, honestly, I don't even know how to feel about this creature. You know what? Screw you! You are a cancelled boy! Moving on, we have a creature named Gigan. This kaiju's first appearance, I believe it was Godzilla vs. Gigan. And I'm also trying to remember the movie titles off the top of my head. It's almost impossible to describe him perfectly, other than he's a giant reptilian kaiju looking thing with hooks for hands, a bird-like beak, as well as like a red thing for his eyes. And you know what? No, I don't know. I would put him in Godzilla tier, but I have to wait and see what else is coming up. We're putting him in true kaiju. Next up, we have a kaiju, a really adorable one named Godzilla Jr. I forgot exactly which movie it was. I think it was Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. I could very well be wrong. In fact, I think I'm almost certainly wrong. This guy, so freaking adorable. Honestly, if this guy were the size of me, or if I were the size of him, I'd just give him a little hug. I want to hug him! But no matter what, since he's the son of the king of the monsters, he always has to look like the Pillsbury Doughboy. If I remember correctly, scientists find an egg containing Godzilla Jr. They capture him, they bring him to some, lab where they x-ray him or whatever, and discover that he has another brain in his ass. Okay, I'm kidding. It's really his tail. And so they try and use that information so Mechagodzilla can kill the adult Godzilla. It was that movie. This one is too adorable just to put in true kaiju. He's Godzilla tier. Come on, man. Come on, man. He's our first Godzilla tier monster. Speaking of Godzilla tier, look who we have next. Freaking Godzilla. I shouldn't even have to say anything. This guy, born from nuclear radiation, has freaking atomic breath, can destroy anything, and is literally the king of the monsters. Plus, he looks freaking badass. I mean, you know where we gotta put the guy. 'Cause, duh! Alright, moving on. Next, we have a kaiju named King Caesar, I believe. This guy, I believe, was introduced in the movie Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla? Yeah, that's a movie. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Movie starts out with Godzilla like throwing a rampage over Tokyo, and he gets in a fight with Anguirus. Anguirus again. I actually may just have to move him up to Godzilla tier. I don't know, but we'll get back to him later. Right now we're on King Caesar. So Godzilla causing a rampage through Tokyo or whatever city. Anguirus fights him, gets his ass whooped, but he picks off a piece of Godzilla's flesh to reveal a metallic coating right underneath, and eventually the real Godzilla comes face to face with the fake Godzilla, and they duke it out. They keep trading blows, blah 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 blah, and Godzilla ends up revealing more of the metal underneath the fake Godzilla's skin, and eventually the fake Godzilla catches fire, all the skin burns off, revealing Mecha Godzilla. Mecha Godzilla is not who we're focusing on. Right now we're focusing on King Caesar. So after Godzilla loses to Mecha Godzilla, he retreats to the sea, Mecha Godzilla goes wherever he's going. So I believe people of a village sing to awaken King Caesar, who apparently only wakes up when you sing to him. Sing to him! So he goes, fights Mecha Godzilla, gets his ass whooped, and eventually Godzilla comes and they just tag team Mecha Godzilla. Going up against Mecha Godzilla, King Caesar was rather useless. And as for how he looks, I'm not the biggest fan of like really hairy kaijus. It just looks weird to me. Like freaking Gabra had hair on top of his head. To me, it just doesn't look right. So King Caesar, you know what? You're gonna go here. Sorry, buddy. Alright, next up we have Godzilla's biggest enemy of all time. We have freaking King Ghidorah! King Ghidorah's first appearance was in the movie Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, because his original name was Ghidorah, later renamed King Ghidorah. He's basically a three-headed dragon that shoots lightning out of all three of his mouths. The point is, this guy is an absolute badass. I'm really certain he's been in over half of the Godzilla movies. Maybe I'm only thinking of a third. But still, as being Godzilla's most renowned enemy, his biggest enemy of all time, you know where he has to go. Godzilla tier! I know I said I wasn't really a fan of hairy kaijus, and I also said I wasn't going to include monsters from Godzilla vs. Kong, but fuck it. We got the goddamn King Kong. King Kong, if you don't know him, you bring shame. You just bring shame wherever you go. Freaking giant-ass ape! This guy, I don't really think he has any special powers other than being a giant-ass gorilla. But still, just for like the well-knownness of this guy, he's Godzilla tier. You can't change my mind on that. Next up, I split this one into sort of three for specific reasons. I'll get into the reason in a minute. First up, we have what I call Mecha Godzilla Mach 1. Reason being is because this was the very first Mecha Godzilla, who appeared in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and Terror of Mechagodzilla. Now, I could go on for hours about what this guy could do, but I'm going to try and condense it. Mechagodzilla is basically a mechanical version of Godzilla controlled by alien sort of creatures. This guy has like a bunch of missiles that comes out of his body parts. He has freaking laser eyes. He can turn his head like a whole 360 degrees, creating this shield around him. He can turn his head backwards so he can fire power in both directions. But eventually, like, the reason he gets beat is because Godzilla, like, turns his head and, like, rips it off. Which doesn't make any sense because we saw how flexible his head was earlier. There have been multiple versions of him. But for now, I think I don't want to put him in Godzilla tier, because other spots need to be filled. So I think for now, we're going to put him up here in True Kaiju, along with Gigan and Anguirus. Next up we have Mechagodzilla Mach 2, which I believe was first introduced in the movie Mechagodzilla 2, but it would technically be the third movie featuring a Mechagodzilla. I don't remember the exact plot of the movie, but all I know is that this Mechagodzilla was created from the robotic parts of a fallen Mecha Ghidorah. And I don't remember. I think that was from the previous movie. I think. I'm not completely certain on much of this. But either way, Mechagodzilla Mach 2 compared to the first one, this one it is more metallic, has that more metallic look, but has such a dopey expression. It doesn't really look all that threatening. I don't want to put it in canceled because it's still pretty freaking cool. So I think we're going to put him in just kind of weird. That seems fair to me. Next up, we have Mechagodzilla Mach 3. This guy, I believe, was introduced in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 3. How many freaking movies do they need with freaking Mechagodzilla? But this one, I believe, is a healthy balance of both the Mechagodzillas. This one actually looks like it's made out of metal and still has the same terrifying factor as the first one. And it can combine with another weapon to become even bigger, badder Mechagodzilla! But still, this guy still can't rise to the standards of the original Mechagodzilla. But he is pretty scary, so we'll put him in pretty scary. Next up, we have a creature named Megalon. Megalon is like this giant insect creature with drills for hands. And he's controlled by the civilization of underground people who get angry at the surface people for testing out nuclear weapons. So what do? They send a giant monster to go deal with them. And what happens? Godzilla goes to deal with them. But that's not the weirdest part of this movie. There's an even weirder part that I'll get into afterwards. I just realized the even weirder part isn't even in here. There was supposed to be someone that I was going to include. It was a giant robot called Jet Jaguar, because that was the craze back in the day in Japan. He's basically like a giant robot that can shrink to human size and giant monster size. And originally he was supposed to be the star of the movie. Oh yeah, Megalon was introduced in the movie Godzilla vs. Megalon. It was originally supposed to Jet Jaguar was supposed to be the star, but they threw Godzilla in at the very end for more marquee value. So Megalon basically got tag teamed by Jet Jaguar and Godzilla. So what do? What do the underground people do? They call the space alien peoples and tell them to send Gigan. Hey, our monster is losing to these surface-dwelling monsters. Can you send your monster to help us? Still, Megalon, I'm just not a fan of this monster. I'm also not a fan of that movie. That is where you belong, Megalon. Alright, but moving on to the next creature. We have the actual son of Godzilla, who for some reason was named Minya. But this actually hurts my head to even look at. This is the son of Godzilla. One suit really looks sad, but it was a good few years ago. For the creative idea of it, I am going to keep it out of canceled, but I just have to put it in just kind of weird. I just can't. Moving on, next we have Mothra, who is known to be one of Godzilla's reoccurring opponents of sorts. I can't even count how many movies she's been in with Godzilla. Probably also a good third. Mothra, basically a giant moth, also has two twin fairies, keep the balance of the universe and the cosmos and whatever. But basically, if you don't know, Mothra actually started out as like her own movie, but got pulled into the Godzilla franchise, but was actually able to escape the Godzilla franchise and go back to being in her own freaking movies. That's one of the very few monsters that's been able to do that. But still, for the famousness that is Mothra, you know she has to be God tier. Godzilla tier! Alright, moving on. We have the enemy creatures from Godzilla 2014 that were known as the Mutos. Honestly, I don't really remember what these creatures are, or what they were, or anything like that. I do not remember that at all, and it's bugging my head. All I know is that the male one could fly. It had wings of sorts. The fact that I can't really remember anything about the Mutos, and that they just didn't leave that big of an impression on me. They are cancelled, boys. We have the monster made in the US that brought shame to the Godzilla name. Ladies and gentlemen, the star of Godzilla 1998, the New York Zilla. This guy is not Godzilla. America tried to pass this off as Godzilla? That's actually kind of insulting. Toho actually retaliated back when they brought out Godzilla 2000. What happened in that movie exactly, I don't really remember. This guy has none of the same things as Godzilla. 1, he looks more like a dinosaur. 2, he can't breathe fire. 3, he's able to get taken down by military weaponry. No real monster can be taken down by military weaponry. I'm sorry, but you know what you are. You are a freaking canceled boy. Moving on. Next monster, we have Rodan. A giant winged pterodactyl-like creature whose first appearance with Godzilla, I believe, was in Godzilla King of the No. That's the most recent one. That was its latest appearance. What I meant to say was Ghidra, the three-headed monster. Rodan, giant pterodactyl creature. Not much more I can say about that. But the fact that he was well known enough to be brought back for Godzilla King of the Monsters, I think, you know what, I don't have to think. He's a Godzilla tier boy. Next up we have the Smog Monster. From, you guessed it, Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. I don't even want to talk about this, it's so creepy. So, you know what I have to do. I'm actually still contemplating. Do I want to put it in cancel or just kind of weird? Because the Smog Monster was actually very well remembered amongst Godzilla fans. You know what? Screw it. Next up, we have Space Godzilla. Yeah, a really creative name. Now, Toho actually provided 2 explanations of how Space Godzilla was created. One theory was that Mothra carried Godzilla spells. Mothra carried Godzilla cells into space, and the cells fell into a black hole, creating Space Godzilla. The alternate explanation they gave is that Space Godzilla came from Biollante, and Biollante spat cells up into space and they went into a black hole. For now, who cares where Space Godzilla came from? The only thing that matters right now is that he's here. But you know what? This guy looks badass. But I don't really think he's well known enough to be a true kaiju. I will say he is pretty scary though. And our last creature, Titanosaurus. His first appearance was in Terror of Mechagodzilla. This is the first movie where Godzilla had to fight 2 monsters and he didn't have any allies. He was fighting both Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus. And Titanosaurus, he basically just looks like an aquatic version of Godzilla. That's all I can say. Ow! One thing for certain is that Titanosaurus had one of the most annoying cackles of all the kaijus that have been in Godzilla movies. And I can still hear it in my head. If you want to know what it sounds like, it's this. What is that? Other than just looking like a really, really weird version of like an aquatic Godzilla, I still say he's pretty scary to me. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Oh no, wait, hold on. Actually, that's where I'm going to leave it. So, it looks like these are my standings. I've been Floz MG. This has been Tear Up, ranking Godzilla creatures, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye!
Bitch, I ain't your hero. Don't call me a savior. Think I'm out of control, that's just my behavior. I'm bringing the house down, major devastation. You don't gotta worry.